New today, a first court hearing for the two men who investigators say were trying to get terror training overseas. Cops arrested the pair on Saturday, both men American citizens. Investigators say the men were planning to fly out of JFK Airport here in Queens, New York, and make their way to Somalia. That's the home of the Al-Shabaab militant group, which intelligence officials say has ties to Al-Qaeda. Police say the two men wanted to join Al-Shabaab to hurt Americans. That's a quote. But investigators stopped the men at the airport and swarmed their homes in New Jersey for looking for evidence. David Lee Miller is live at the federal courthouse in Newark, New Jersey now. David Lee, what happened in court today?
Well, you know, Shepard, as courtroom appearances go, this for the most part was pretty uneventful. It lasted only 3 minutes in length, and during the hearing we saw Mohamed Alessa and Carlos Almonte, both very heavily bearded as well as shackled. Their hands were handcuffed. Now, Alessa had bruises and cuts on one side of his face. Authorities were asked about that later. They say that he resisted arrest on Saturday night. The courtroom, as you might expect, was absolutely packed. Also in attendance today were Alessa's parents. After the brief hearing, they left the courthouse, fleeing down the street from reporters, trying to hide their faces. They would not address the charges that their son faces, charges of conspiracy to kill, maim, and kidnap while overseas. But it is likely his parents could be back here on Thursday. That's when a detention hearing is scheduled to take place. Right now, both the suspects remain behind bars. Shepard?
What do we know about their backgrounds, David Lee?
You know, both of these young men, we are told, were typical normal kids until they became teenagers. At that point, they started to become introverted and withdrawn, and they became increasingly religious. Specifically now, let's talk about Alessa. His family is of Palestinian ancestry. The landlord where he lives said the family was very religious. As for Almonte, his parents hail from the Dominican Republic, and he reportedly converted to Islam. But as you mentioned at the outset, both of these two young men are U.S. citizens, and the U.S. attorney here today emphasized the growing concern about homegrown terrorism.
This is a very real danger. It's one that the Department of Justice and our law enforcement partners take very seriously. You've seen this and a number of other cases in which people who are in the United States are alleged to have become radicalized.
And how did these two men become radicalized? Well, it appears they listened to a great deal of videos and recordings from the Internet. They read a great deal of literature written by the likes of Osama bin Laden. And Shepard, especially worth noting here is that some of the videos they listened to were from Anwar al-Awlaki. He's the U.S.-born cleric now in Yemen. On some of those recordings, he justified the killing of civilians in the name of holy war. Shepard?
David Lee Miller live in Newark, New Jersey. Again, Judge